The stars were dying. At least, that was how it felt to High Counselor as she stood on the observation deck of the last command ship. Through the viewport, she could see the scattered remains of her people's fleet. Broken ships drifted in the darkness. Some still burned with pale blue flames that would take days to die out in the vacuum of space. Behind her, the command center was filled with the soft crying of her officers. They were a gentle species. They had large dark eyes, thin bodies covered in soft gray fur, and delicate hands made for art and science. They had never been warriors. For 10,000 years, they had lived in peace with their neighbors, building a civilization based on knowledge and kindness. Now that civilization was burning. The hegemony had come without warning. Their massive warships had appeared at the edge of space 6 cycles ago. They had demanded complete surrender. When the Council tried to negotiate, they simply attacked. 4 core worlds had fallen. Billions were now slaves or dead. The survivors had fled to this distant corner of space, hiding near a dying red star that provided just enough heat to keep their ships running. Pressed her hand against the cold glass of the viewport. She was old by standards, nearly 200 cycles. She had served on the Council for half that time. She had seen many crises, but nothing like this. "Counselor," a young officer named called out. His voice shook with fear. "The hunting fleet has found our trail. They will reach us in 12 rotations." 12 rotations, less than a standard day in the old calendar. That was all the time they had left. Closed her eyes. She thought of the ancient stories, the legends passed down from the earliest days of civilization. Stories of beings from distant stars who came to help those in need. She had always believed they were just myths, but myths were all she had left. She said quietly, "Bring me the deep space communication array. We will send a message." "To whom, Counselor? All our allies have abandoned us. The other species are too afraid of to help." "Not to our allies." Turned to face her young officer. "Do you remember the survey reports from 60 cycles ago, the uncontacted world in the outer spiral arm?" His eyes widened. "The primitive planet, the one with the, what did we call them?" "Humans," spoke the word carefully. It felt strange on her tongue. "We called them humans. They had barely reached their own moon when we them. They were violent, chaotic, divided into hundreds of competing nations." "And you wish to contact them? Counselor, even if they received our message, what could primitives do against the?" Shook her head slowly. "I do not know, but we are dying. They will be extinct within a cycle if nothing changes. I would rather place my hope in primitives than accept death with silence." The message was simple. Recorded it herself, speaking in basic mathematical language that any species capable of space travel could understand. She described the situation. She begged for humanitarian aid, medical supplies, food, clean water. She made no mention of military assistance. What would be the point? A primitive species could offer nothing against the might of the hegemony. The signal was sent. It flew across the vast emptiness of space at the speed of light, carrying the desperate hope of a dying civilization. On Earth, it was a quiet Tuesday morning when the signal reached Lunar Station 7. Commander Park was drinking her 3rd cup of coffee when the alert came through. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and short black hair that she kept perfectly neat despite the challenges of low gravity. She had served in the United Earth Defense Coalition for 23 years, most of that time spent watching empty space and hoping nothing would ever appear in it. "Commander, we have something." Set down her coffee cup and walked to the sensor station. Lieutenant Ma was staring at his screen with wide eyes. "What is it?" she asked. "A signal, Commander, from outside our solar system. It is. It is not natural. It follows mathematical patterns. It is definitely artificial." Felt her heart begin to beat faster. This was the moment humanity had been preparing for since they first reached the stars. First contact. She had run drills for this situation 100 times. She had never actually expected it to happen. Record everything, she ordered, and get me doctor from the linguistics department. We need translation immediately. Arrived within the hour. She was young for someone with 3 doctoral degrees, still in her early 30s. Her specialty was theoretical, a field most scientists considered useless since humanity had never encountered alien life. Until now. The mathematical framework is actually quite elegant, explained as she worked. Her fingers moved quickly across her keyboard. They used prime number sequences as a base, then built a simple pictographic language on top, very clever, designed to be understood by any technological species. "What does it say?" asked impatiently. Was quiet for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft with emotion. "It is a distress call, Commander. They call themselves they are being attacked by something called the hegemony. They have lost most of their civilization. They are begging for help." She paused. "They are asking for medical supplies and food. They think we are primitives. They do not expect us to be able to do anything else." Stared at the decoded message on the screen. Somewhere out there, an entire civilization was dying. They had reached out to Earth as a last desperate hope, expecting nothing more than charity from a backward species. She picked up her communicator and connected to Earth Command. "This is Commander Park at Lunar Station 7. I need an emergency session of the Global Council. We have received first contact, and it is a call for help." 12 hours later, the Global Council voted. The decision was unanimous. Admiral Shin received his orders at dawn. He was an old soldier, gray-haired and from humanity's last great war. He had spent the past decade building the Defense Coalition fleet in secret, preparing for threats that many people thought would never come. Now they had come, and humanity would answer. "Mobilize the 1st through 5th Expeditionary Fleets," he ordered. "Every ship that can fly, we are going to war." His aide looked at him with confusion. "Sir, the message only requested aid supplies." Admiral Shin smiled grimly. "They asked for help. We do not do things halfway. When someone attacks civilians, we do not send bandages. We send the fleet." 800 warships began powering up their engines. Humanity was coming. Counselor had given up hope. 8 rotations had passed since she sent the distress signal to the primitive blue planet. The hunting fleet was less than 4 rotations away now. She could see their ships on the long-range sensors, moving toward the dying red star like sharks swimming toward bleeding prey. Her people had stopped crying. They had moved past grief into a quiet acceptance of death. The last ships of the collective floated in the dim red light of the ancient star, waiting for the end. "Counselor," his voice broke the silence, "the sensors are detecting something." The asked wearily. "No, these signatures are coming from the opposite direction, paused. His voice changed, becoming strange and confused. "From the outer spiral arm." Felt her heart stop. The outer spiral arm, where Earth was located. "How many ships?" she asked. Did not answer immediately. He was staring at his screen, his large dark eyes growing wider and wider. His hands began to shake. "Officer," said more firmly, "how many ships?" "I do not. The sensors must be malfunctioning." His voice had become a whisper. "Counselor, the sensors are showing. They are showing 800 vessels, large vessels, very large." Rushed to the sensor station. She pushed aside gently and looked at the readings herself. Her blood ran cold. The screen showed a massive formation of ships emerging from faster-than-light travel. They were huge, far larger than anything they had ever built. Each ship was covered in heavy armor plating. Their hulls bristled with weapons. They moved in perfect formation, like a single enormous predator made of metal and fire. "That is impossible," breathed. "The humans were barely space-capable. They could not have built such a fleet." But the evidence was undeniable. The ships were approaching, and they were broadcasting a signal on the same frequency they had used for their distress call. "They are hailing us," said. "Open the channel." A voice filled the command center. It was translated through the same mathematical language had used in her message, but behind the translation, she could hear the original words. They were harsh and strong, spoken with a confidence that they had never possessed. "This is Admiral Shin of the United Earth Defense Coalition. We received your distress signal. We have come to help. Please identify yourself and state your current situation." Found that she could not speak. The refugees around her were staring at their screens in shock. Some had fallen to their knees. Others were weeping again, but this time with something other than despair. "I am High Counselor of the Collective," she finally managed to say. "We are the survivors of our civilization. We are being hunted by the hegemony we expected. We hoped for supplies, medicine, food." There was a pause before the human admiral responded. "We brought supplies, but we also brought our fleet. We would like to discuss the situation with you in person, Counselor. Will you come aboard our flagship?" 3 hours later, small shuttle approached the human vessel called Hammer of Soul. Up close, the ship was even more terrifying than it had appeared on sensors. It was nearly 2 kilometers long, covered in thick gray armor that showed scars from previous battles. Its weapons were enormous, designed to cause destruction on a scale that made feel sick. The shuttle bay doors opened and guided her vessel inside. The moment she stepped out of her ship, she knew she had made a mistake. The air hit her first. It was thick and heavy, filled with a mixture of gases that made her lungs burn. They operated their ships at low atmospheric pressure with carefully balanced gases. The humans apparently breathed something far more aggressive. Then came the gravity, staggered and nearly fell. Her legs, evolved for the light gravity of Prime, screamed in protest. The humans lived under a crushing weight that would slowly kill any who stayed too long. A human woman approached her. She was small by human standards, but she walked easily in the terrible gravity. Her uniform was crisp and neat. Her eyes were sharp and intelligent. "Counselor, I am Science Officer. Welcome aboard the Hammer of Soul. I apologize for the conditions. We have prepared a modified environment for you, but you will need to walk a short distance to reach it." Nodded weakly and followed the woman. Every step was agony. She watched the humans moving around her with horror. They walked and ran and carried heavy objects as if the gravity meant nothing to them. Their bodies were dense and muscular, built to survive conditions that would destroy more delicate species. In the conference room, she was given a special chair that reduced the gravity around her. She breathed easier air pumped in from her shuttle, but she could still see the humans clearly, and what she saw frightened her. Admiral Shin sat across from her. He was an older man with gray hair and a face marked by scars. Next to him sat a younger man named Go, who served as translator. Around the table were other officers, all of them radiating the same quiet confidence. "Tell us about the," Admiral Shin said simply. Explained everything. She described the hegemony, an empire that spanned over 1,000 star systems. She told them about themselves, tall creatures with armored bodies and natural weapons. She explained that no species had ever successfully resisted them. When she finished, she expected the humans to look afraid. Instead, Admiral Shin simply nodded. "You said there is a hunting fleet 4 rotations away," he said. "How many ships?" "Approximately 50 vessels," replied. The humans around the table exchanged glances. Some of them smiled. 50 ships, Admiral Shin repeated. He turned to his tactical officer. "Commander, please coordinate with the fleet. Standard engagement pattern." Leaned forward. "Admiral, you do not understand. They are the most powerful military force in the galaxy. 50 of their warships have never been defeated by any." She stopped speaking because Admiral Shin was looking at her with an expression she did not understand. It took her a moment to realize it was pity. "Counselor," he said gently, "we brought 800 ships. We have fought wars against ourselves that killed hundreds of millions of our own people. We have weapons that can crack planets. We evolved on a world so dangerous that most galactic species classify it as uninhabitable." He leaned back in his chair. "They have never fought humans before. I promise you they are not prepared for what is coming." Wanted to argue. She wanted to explain that they had conquered countless species who thought they could resist. But looking at the faces of the humans around her, she felt something she had not felt in a long time. She felt hope, and for the first time she also felt something new. She felt afraid of her rescuers. The hunting fleet arrived exactly when expected. 50 warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel near the dying red star, their weapons already charging. Commander stood on the bridge of his flagship, his armored body relaxed with confidence. This would be easy. The refugees had nowhere left to run. "Commander," his sensor officer called out, "we are detecting additional vessels near the fleet." "How many?" asked without concern. "Probably some foolish traders who had stumbled into the wrong place at the wrong time." 800, Commander." Turned sharply, "What did you say?" 800 vessels, unknown design, unknown origin, they are moving to intercept us." On the watched as the strange fleet approached. The ships were massive and ugly, covered in thick armor and bristling with weapons. They moved with perfect coordination, spreading out into a formation that would surround his fleet completely. "Open a channel," ordered. A human face appeared on the screen. It was Admiral Shin, speaking through a translator device. "Vessels, this is Admiral Shin of the United Earth Defense Coalition. You are ordered to withdraw from this system immediately. The collective is now under our protection. Any hostile action will be met with overwhelming force." Laughed. The sound echoed through his bridge, harsh and cruel. "Humans, I have heard of your species. You are primitives from a small world in the outer spiral arm. You dare to threaten the hegemony." "This is your only warning," Admiral Shin replied calmly. "Leave now or we will destroy you." "Cut the communication channel. All ships, attack formation, destroy these fools." The battle lasted 43 minutes. The ships fired first, launching waves of plasma torpedoes and particle beams. Their weapons had shattered the defenses of 100 species. They expected the human ships to burn and break. Instead, the torpedoes splashed against human armor and did almost nothing. The particle beams scored the thick plating but failed to penetrate. The human ships kept coming, absorbing damage that would have destroyed any vessel 3 times over. Then the humans fired back. Their weapons were brutal. Massive kinetic projectiles accelerated to incredible speeds punched through armor like it was paper. Nuclear-tipped missiles detonated against hulls, vaporizing entire sections of ships. Concentrated laser batteries cut through the fleet with surgical precision. Watched in horror as his ships died around him. The humans did not fight like any species he had ever encountered. They did not retreat when damaged. They did not hesitate when outnumbered in local engagements. They pressed forward with a savage determination that seemed almost insane. When the battle ended, 47 ships were destroyed. Only 3 managed to escape into faster-than-light travel, carrying the terrible news back to the hegemony. Was not among the survivors. The liberation of the occupied worlds began immediately. Admiral Shin divided his fleet into task forces, each one assigned to a different planet. The largest force, led by the Hammer of Soul, headed for Prime, the most heavily fortified position. Marine Captain Han stood in the dropship bay, checking her squad's equipment one final time. She was a small woman, compact and efficient, with the focused eyes of a predator. Around her, 40 Marines prepared for ground assault. "Listen up," she said, her voice cutting through the noise. "Intelligence says there are about 2,000 defenders on the surface. They have fortified positions around the main population center. Civilians are being held as slaves in the central compound." One of her Marines, a young man named Ryu, raised his hand. Captain, 2,000 against 40. Those are bad numbers. Smiled, it was not a friendly expression. Those are numbers. They have never fought humans on the ground. They do not know what we are. She picked up her rifle, a heavy weapon that would have required two to lift. We go in fast. We go in hard. We get the civilians out. Anyone who tries to stop us dies. Questions? There were no questions. The dropships descended through the atmosphere of Prime like falling stars. The anti-aircraft weapons opened fire, filling the sky with explosions. 2 dropships were hit and destroyed. The others kept coming. Ship hit the ground hard. The doors blew open and she was running before the dust settled. Around her, Marines poured out of the surviving ships, moving toward the defensive line. They were waiting. They stood behind fortified walls, their massive bodies armored with natural plates and artificial enhancements. They were nearly 7 feet tall, with 4 arms that ended in serrated claws. Their eyes glowed red with battle rage. They opened fire with plasma weapons. The air burned. 3 Marines fell in the first seconds. The humans did not stop. They did not take cover. They charged directly into the fire, screaming battle cries that echoed across the battlefield. Reach the wall first. A warrior loomed above her, twice her size and covered in weapons. It swung a massive claw at her head. She ducked, rolled, and came up firing. Her rifle punched holes through this armor. The creature fell. Another attacked from behind. She spun and caught its arm, using its momentum to throw it off the wall. She pulled a grenade from her belt and tossed it into the formation below. The explosion scattered bodies across the compound. Around her, her Marines fought with the same savage efficiency. They were faster than more aggressive, more willing to take risks. They took wounds that would have killed any and kept fighting. They used weapons and fists and teeth when necessary. The battle lasted 11 minutes. When it was over, stood in the center of the compound, breathing hard. Around her, the bodies of warriors lay scattered like broken toys. Medical officer was treating the wounded, 3 Marines with injuries that would require surgery but nothing fatal. The survivors, perhaps 200 out of the original 2,000, had surrendered. They knelt on the ground, their eyes filled with something had never seen in a before. Fear. The slaves emerged slowly from the buildings where they had been held. They looked at the human soldiers with the same wide-eyed terror they had shown toward realized they could not tell the difference between one monster and another. She lowered her weapon and knelt down to meet the eyes of a young child. The child flinched backward. "It is okay," said softly, her voice completely different from the battle roar of moments before. "You are safe now. We are here to take you home." The child stared at her for a long moment. Then slowly it reached out and touched her hand. Smiled, a real smile this time. "That is right, we are friends." Counselor watched the footage from Prime aboard the Hammer of Soul. She saw the battle. She saw the brutality. She saw humans take wounds that should have killed them and keep fighting. She saw them tear through defenses like they were nothing. Then she saw Captain Han kneeling before the child, gentle and kind, a completely different creature from the killer she had been moments before. Finally understood what humans were. They were not monsters. They were not savages. They were something far more complex and far more terrifying. They were protectors, and there was nothing in the galaxy more dangerous than a human protecting the innocent. Word spread through the hegemony like fire through dry grass. At first, the reports were dismissed as lies. They had somehow developed new weapons. A third party had intervened. The hunting fleet had made tactical errors. Then more reports came, and the truth became impossible to deny. The humans had liberated 12 worlds in 30 standard cycles. They had destroyed over 300 warships. They had killed tens of thousands of warriors on the ground, and they showed no signs of stopping. Supreme Commander stood before the High Council, his armored body tense with fury. Around him, The most powerful leaders of the hegemony listened in stunned silence as intelligence reports were read aloud. "The species calls itself human," the intelligence officer reported. "They originate from a Class 12 designated Sol 3 in their star system." "Class 12," one of the council members interrupted. "That is impossible. No intelligent species could evolve on a Class 12 world." "Nevertheless, they did." The officer continued reading. "Sol 3 has extreme temperature variations, ranging from -60 to +50 on the standard scale. The planet has violent tectonic activity, with frequent earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. The atmosphere contains high levels of oxygen, which is corrosive and toxic to most galactic species. The planet is covered in apex predators on every landmass, and the inhabitants." The officer paused, as if he could not believe his own words. "The inhabitants actively consume neurotoxins for pleasure. They drink a corrosive stimulant called coffee multiple times per day. They eat a fruit called pepper that contains chemicals designed to cause pain." The council chamber was silent. "They are monsters," said finally. "Monsters, and they have come for us." Fleet Commander did not think of himself as a monster. He stood on the bridge of his flagship, the spirit of reviewing tactical data for the next operation. He was a patient man, thoughtful and precise. He believed that every problem had a solution if you studied it long enough. They were learning to fear him. They had given him a name in their language, something that translated roughly to the patient death. He did not attack rashly. He waited and watched, studied his enemies, found their weaknesses. Then he struck with overwhelming precision. "Commander," his tactical officer called out, "the defensive fleet at Prime is pulling back. They are abandoning their positions." Nodded slowly. This was the Fifth Fleet to retreat without fighting. Word of human capabilities was spreading, and they were losing their nerve. "Do not pursue," he ordered. "Let them run. Fear is a weapon too." While fought the military war, Ambassador Myra fought the diplomatic one. She was a tall woman with a warm smile and sharp intelligence behind her friendly eyes. She had spent her career negotiating between hostile nations on Earth. Negotiating with aliens was simply a larger scale of the same work. She sat in a private chamber on a neutral station, facing representatives of 3 species that had been enslaved by the hegemony. They were insect-like creatures with clicking voices. They were tall and thin, with skin that changed color with their emotions. They were small and covered in blue fur, with 6 eyes that watched everything at once. "The hegemony is weakening," Myra said calmly. "Every day, more forces are pulled back to defend their core systems. This is your opportunity." The representative clicked nervously. "You ask us to rebel against our masters. They will punish us severely." "They cannot punish anyone if they are busy fighting us." Myra leaned forward. "We are offering you freedom. Real freedom, protected by the full military power of the United Earth Defense Coalition. All we ask in return is that you stop supplying the hegemony with resources and soldiers." "And what happens after?" they asked, its skin shifting from gray to purple with suspicion. "They are cruel masters, but they are predictable. How do we know you will not simply replace them?" Myra was quiet for a moment. She understood their fear. These species had been enslaved for generations. They had no reason to trust anyone. "You do not know," she admitted. "You have no reason to trust us except our actions. Look at what we have done for them. We came to help them without asking for anything in return. We are fighting and dying to free people we never met before. This is who we are." The 3 representatives looked at each other. They communicated in ways Myra could not understand, sharing thoughts and fears through subtle gestures and color changes. Finally, they spoke, its voice soft and careful. "We will consider your offer, but we need time." "Time is something we may not have," Myra said. "They will eventually understand that they cannot defeat us in small battles. When that happens, they will try something desperate. I do not want your people caught in the crossfire." She was right. At that moment, thousands of light years away, the Supreme Council was making exactly the decision she had predicted. "We must strike at there," Supreme Commander declared. "Destroy Earth, and the human invasion will collapse. They will be too busy mourning their dead to continue fighting." "Sol 3 is far from our space," a council member argued. "We would need to commit most of our remaining fleet if we fail." "We will not fail," slammed his armored fist against the table. "We will assemble the Grand Armada, 10,000 warships, the largest fleet in galactic history. We will burn their world to ash and scatter their bones across space." The council voted. The decision was unanimous. Intelligence officer intercepted the communication 3 days later. He was a quiet man who preferred working with data rather than people. He had a gift for finding patterns that others missed. When he decoded the message, he felt his blood run cold. "Admiral Shin," he reported via secure channel. "They are assembling a massive fleet, 10,000 ships. They are planning to attack Earth directly." There was a long pause before the Admiral responded. "How long do we have?" 6 days, maybe 7 if we are lucky." "Send word to Earth Command. Tell them to prepare everything they have. Every ship, every weapon, every person who can fight." Swallowed hard. "Admiral, we only have about 2,000 combat-capable ships in the Sol system. Even with everything we can gather, we will be outnumbered 5 to 1. "I know." Admiral Shin's voice was steady, almost calm. "Tell Fleet Commander to finish his current operations and return to Earth at maximum speed. We are going to need everyone." Sent the messages. Across human space, ships changed course. Production facilities worked around the clock. Civilians volunteered for emergency military training. Earth was about to face the largest battle in galactic history, and humanity was going to meet it head-on. The Grand Armada arrived at the edge of the Sol system at dawn on a Thursday. 10,000 warships emerged from faster-than-light travel, spreading across space like a dark cloud. They were the most powerful military force ever assembled in galactic history. Supreme Commander stood on the bridge of his massive command ship, watching the sensor displays with satisfaction. Earth hung in the distance, a small blue dot that would soon burn. The humans had sent everything they could muster to stop him, but it was not enough. 2,000 ships, his tactical officer reported, including civilian vessels that have been converted for combat. They are forming a defensive line near the 4th planet. Laughed, 2,000 against 10,000. They are brave, I will admit that, but bravery will not save them. He opened a communication channel, broadcasting on all frequencies. "Humans of Earth, I am Supreme Commander of the Hegemony. You have attacked our territory, killed our warriors and our empire. Now you will pay the price. Surrender your world and we may allow some of your people to live as slaves. Resist, and we will burn everything you have ever built. You have 1 hour to respond." The response came immediately, broadcast from the human flagship. Admiral Shin's face appeared on the screen, calm and cold. "You have entered human space," the Admiral said. "Turn back now or we will teach you what it truly means." Cut the channel and gave the order to attack. The Battle of the Red Planet began at 600 hours Earth Standard Time. The fleet advanced in a massive wave, their weapons firing before they even reached effective range. The human defensive line held position near Mars, waiting. Pilot No gripped the controls of her fighter with steady hands. She was part of the 77th Attack Squadron, one of the first units to engage the enemy. Around her, 300 other fighters moved in formation, tiny compared to the massive warships but fast and deadly. "All wings, this is Squadron Leader No. We are going to punch through their formation and target their command ships. Stay tight, watch your and do not stop moving. If you stop, you die." Her fighter accelerated toward the fleet. The space around her exploded with weapons fire. She twisted and rolled, dodging plasma bolts that could vaporize her ship in a single hit. 2 fighters on her left were destroyed. She did not look back. The human capital ships engaged next. The Hammer of Soul led the charge, its massive guns firing continuously at the formation. Admiral Shin stood on the bridge, calmly giving orders as his ship shook from enemy fire. "Target their troop carriers," he commanded. "They are planning to land soldiers on Earth. Do not let them through." The battle was brutal. Human ships were destroyed by the dozen. The Simply had too many guns, too many ships, too much firepower. But the humans did not retreat. They held their ground, buying time with their lives. On the Spirit of, Chief Engineer worked frantically to keep his ship fighting. A torpedo had struck the engine room, killing half his team and crippling the main power system. The ship was dying around him. "We need main power back in 60 seconds or we lose weapons," his assistant shouted. Grabbed a welding torch and climbed into a maintenance shaft that was filled with toxic smoke. He could barely breathe. His skin burned from the heat. He did not stop. 52 seconds later, main power came back online. The Spirit of continued fighting. On the Hammer of Soul, Admiral Shin watched the tactical display with grim determination. They had destroyed nearly 2,000 ships, but they had lost almost half their own fleet. They were still coming, still pushing forward. Earth's orbital defenses were the last line. If the fleet fell, the planet would be exposed. "Admiral," his communications officer called out. "We are receiving a message from Fleet Commander. He is arriving in system." Shin allowed himself a small smile. Finally. Behind the fleet, space tore open. 600 human warships emerged from faster-than-light travel, their weapons already firing. Fleet Commander had pushed his engines beyond every safety limit to arrive in time. His ships were damaged from the strain, their crews exhausted from the journey. It did not matter. They found themselves caught between 2 forces. The human defenders in front of them refused to break. The human reinforcements behind them attacked without mercy. For the first time in the battle, ships began to turn away, trying to escape the trap. Supreme Commander screamed orders at his officers. "Hold the line, do not retreat, we will destroy them." But his fleet was breaking. The humans fought with a fury that they could not match. Every ship that tried to retreat was pursued and destroyed. Every ship that stayed was overwhelmed by concentrated fire from multiple directions. No led what remained of her squadron in a direct attack on command ship. Her fighter was damaged, leaking atmosphere, its weapons nearly depleted. She did not care. "All wings follow me. We are going for the head." Her squadron dove toward the massive vessel, dodging defensive fire. Half her pilots were killed in the approach. The survivors reached the ship's bridge section and fired everything they had. Its command ship exploded in a ball of nuclear fire. Without their supreme commander, the fleet lost all coordination. Ships fled in every direction, desperate to escape the human forces that hunted them without mercy. The Battle of the Red Planet became a rout. When it was over, only 2,000 ships remained of the original 10,000. They scattered into deep space, broken and terrified. Behind them, they left the wreckage of their greatest fleet and the bodies of their finest warriors. Humanity had won. The hegemony collapsed within a year. Their client species revolted, encouraged by Ambassador Myra's diplomatic efforts. Their remaining military was too weak to maintain control. They signed a conditional surrender aboard the human station Unity. Counselor addressed the reformed Galactic Assembly on the anniversary of the first contact. Representatives from 100 species filled the chamber, all of them watching the small gray with the large dark eyes. "1 year ago," began, "my people were dying. We had lost everything. Our worlds were burning, our fleet was destroyed, and our civilization was being erased from the galaxy. In desperation, we sent a message to a primitive species on a small blue planet. We asked for medicine. We asked for food. We expected nothing more than charity from beings who had barely reached their own moon. She paused, looking out at the assembly. We received something far beyond our expectations. The humans did not send a few supply ships. They sent their entire fleet. They fought and died for people they had never met. They challenged the most powerful empire in the galaxy, not for profit or territory, but because someone asked for help. Commander Park stood in the back of the chamber, now promoted to Admiral after Admiral Shin's retirement. She wore her dress uniform, the medals on her chest representing battles she would rather forget. Beside her stood Captain Han, Fleet Commander, Ambassador Myra, and the other humans who had helped win the war. The galaxy has learned a new word, continued. It once simply meant a species from a dangerous planet. Now it means something more. It means a species that faces extinction and chooses to fight anyway. It means a species that rushes toward danger to protect strangers. It means a species that treats the impossible as merely difficult. A journalist approached Admiral Park after the ceremony. Admiral, the galaxy wants to know, what do humans want in return for everything they have done? What payment do you expect for your sacrifice? Looked at the journalist for a long moment. She thought about the friends she had lost, the ships that would never fly again, the families that would never be whole. Then she smiled, warm and genuine. You called for help, we answered. That is what neighbors do. The journalist stared at her confused. That is all, no territory, no resources, no political power. That is all. Turned and walked away, joining her fellow officers. Together they looked out the viewport at the stars. Somewhere out there, human and ships flew side by side, patrolling the trade routes they had secured together. New alliances were being formed. New friendships were being built. Humanity had come to the stars looking for threats. Instead, they had found something better. They had found people who needed their help. And for humans, that was enough. The end.